Hello Star Wars fans, and welcome to episode 30 of Journey into Legends. Today we are going to be continuing our read-through of the Young Jedi Knights series. Young Jedi Knights is a young adult series of 14 novels written by Kevin J. Anderson and Rebecca Moesta. In my last video, I reviewed books 1 through 6 of the series, and today I will be reading the next 5 books, which together form The Fall of the Diversity Alliance. So without further ado, let's read and review. Alright, so jumping back into the series, I've just finished Book 7, Shards of Alderaan, and I thought it was a really fun start to this arc. This one picks up after the battle against the Shadow Academy as the Jedi Order works to rebuild the Great Temple, and the seeds of this story arc are planted when we learn that Raynar Thul's father, born in Thul, has disappeared. This brings us to a character named Nola Tarkona, the leader of the Diversity Alliance, and she has hired none other than Boba Fett to find Bornin. Now apparently it was later retconned that this is actually Boba's daughter, simply masquerading as him, which makes this book a little bit less interesting, but I don't mind it too much. For simplicity's sake, I'll just refer to her as Boba Fett from now on. Now other than setting up the mystery behind Bornin's disappearance, this book doesn't actually contribute too much to the arc, and acts more as a one-off adventure of the week type of book, which was really fun. The kids take a trip to the graveyard of Alderaan to basically take a piece of the planet as a birthday gift for Leia. But in true Young Jedi Knights fashion, what seems like a harmless little adventure turns into a life-or-death situation as they eventually run into Boba Fett, who uses them as bait to lure Han Solo to Alderaan, who he thinks may hold a clue to Bornin Thul's whereabouts. Eventually, the kids are rescued by Zek, who's had his own little adventure in this book. Zek decides that he's done too many evil things to be a Jedi, so he decides to return to his home planet of Nth. Now, Nth I thought was a really cool concept for a planet done in a fairly dumb way. Basically, the orbit of Nth's moon brings it dangerously close to the planet every 8 years, causing extinction-level catastrophes that force the inhabitants to evacuate the planet for a year until it's safe to return and rebuild their cities. But for some dumb reason or another, the colonists refuse to just leave and go to a safer planet to live. And not only that, but they are so ill-prepared for this catastrophe that they know is coming that there are numerous casualties, and they also have permanent dwellings on the planet. You'd think that they'd have learned by now to have mobile homes or at least live in ships, but nope. They're just content with their lives being destroyed and having to be rebuilt every 8 years. A planet that gets wiped clean of all civilization every few years is a cool concept, despite how stupid the population is. Other than that, and the fact that everybody just ignores that it's Luke's birthday as well, this book was a pretty fun one, and overall one of the better books of the series thus far. Now it's time for Book 8, Diversity Alliance. Alright, so I just finished Book 8, Diversity Alliance, and I thought this one was pretty good. So this book has the children accompanying Raynar as he returns to his family's merchant fleet to help with the search for his father, Bornin Thul. While there, the kids decide to go on their own search for Bornin, starting with his last known location, a planet called Kawar. On Kawar, the kids find a cryptic message left by Bornin and are attacked by some weird spider creatures. A new character introduced in this storyline is an old friend of Lobaka's named Rabba, who was presumed dead in a previous book. Overall, I thought Rabba was a rather uninteresting character, other than the fact that she's actually a member of the Diversity Alliance, which sets up an interesting dynamic between her, Loie, and his human friends. The kids are eventually joined by Bornin's brother Tycho, who eventually gets taken by none other than IG-88, so it was interesting to see him show up again. Then we have our B-plot, which follows Zek as he tries to make a name for himself as a bounty hunter. After following a lead on a scavenger named Fontarat, Zek ends up at the planet Gamelin, where he discovers a human colony wiped out by a mysterious plague. Also on the planet is Boba Fett, whose badass, mysterious, and honorable portrayal in this book was true to the character and made for some fun interactions with Zek. Overall, this book did a good job of pushing the plot forward, answering some questions, while also deepening the mystery. Even though it plays its part within the storyline well, I found the book rather boring compared to other books, so this one will probably rank lower on my list, though I do think both Kawar and Gamelin were fun locations. Anyways, now it's time to move on to Book 9, Delusions of Grandeur. Alright, so I just finished Book 9, Delusions of Grandeur, and overall this was one of my least favorite of the series. Before I get to why, I'm going to talk about the things I liked in it. Firstly, this book saw the return of a few noteworthy characters. Both Boba Fett and IG-88 returned from previous books, the latter of whom's kidnapping of Tycho Thule in the last book was actually just a ruse to lure out Tycho's brother, Bornin. Another bounty hunter that shows up in this book is Dengar, which was cool to see since we haven't gotten any Dengar content so far in the EU. Another character that showed up in this book was Lusa from the Crystal Star, which was a fun surprise. Another thing this book did well was how it progressed the plot of the Diversity Alliance arc. We now have a complete picture of what's going on between Nola Tarkona, Born Thul, Fontarat, and the Plague. Another interesting story element is that Lobaka is now being drawn into the Diversity Alliance by his friend Rabba, so I'm interested to see where that will go from here. But other than those things, this book was fairly boring. Unlike other books in this series, this one had a noticeable lack of memorable moments, and even though I just finished reading it, I'm having a hard time remembering exactly what happened. Overall, it's not at all a bad book, it's simply forgettable. Now it's time to move on to Book 10, Jedi Bounty. Alright, so I just finished Book 10, Jedi Bounty, and I really enjoyed it. This one takes the kids to Ryloth as they attempt to rescue Lobaka from the clutches of the Diversity Alliance. I really liked the story for this book. With the kids going directly into the belly of the beast, despite knowing that they would all make it out alive, I felt that there was some really good tension in this one. I really enjoyed reading from Lobaka's perspective as he becomes more and more disillusioned with Rabba and the Diversity Alliance. I liked how he never truly got tricked into believing the Alliance's schemes, which made him seem like a very competent character. But my favorite part of this book was the kids' rescue mission, specifically a part where they split up and are forced to escape out into the inhospitable sections of the planet, with Jason and Tenel Ka going out into the frigid ice side, and Jaina and Raynar going out into the scorching hot side, both groups having their endurance tested in a fun way. There wasn't too much happening outside of the Ryloth plotline. We had Zek continuing his hunt for Born Thul, coming one step closer with a tracking beacon now planted on Thul's ship. Overall, this was definitely my favorite book of the Diversity Alliance arc thus far, and one of my overall favorites of the series. Now it's time to finish the Diversity Alliance arc with Book 11, The Emperor's Plague. Alright, so I have just finished the final book of the Diversity Alliance arc, Book 11, The Emperor's Plague, and I really enjoyed it. In this one, the New Republic sets out to put an end to the Diversity Alliance's nefarious plot for good. Overall, this one was filled with a ton of action, and it acted as a fantastic finale to the entire arc. It tied up plot threads and brought character arcs to conclusion in a satisfying way. I liked how the arcs of characters like Born Thul, Nola Tarkona, and Rabba ended, and other characters such as Zek, Lusa, and Raynar went through some great character development. In the end, the Emperor's weapon depot and the human plague was destroyed, but not before Nola Tarkona could escape with a few vials of it. Although Nola died from exposure to a similar plague, the vials she escaped with weren't mentioned, so I wonder if that's a plotline that'll get resolved in the next arc, similar to how the last surviving Royal Guard from the Shadow Academy arc showed up in this one. Overall, this was definitely one of my favorites of the series thus far. It was one of the most entertaining of the series, and the way it concluded the arc was extremely satisfying. Overall, I really enjoyed this arc. I think I still prefer the Shadow Academy arc because although the last two books have been great, the first three of this arc were a bit slower and a bit uninteresting. Nonetheless, I'm excited to jump into the final three books. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for my next video where I'll be reviewing the third and final arc of the Young Jedi Knights series, Under Black Sun. See ya.